Okay. Think about the K1s in this regard. Let's let's do it this way.
Of the K1s.
The K1s serve as the ledger that's either been assigned as a credit slash debit. Let's go back to our example so you kind of see how you're looking inside of the tokenization. This barcode is recorded on the document. And then the algorithm, everywhere it sees this barcode, it knows that this is a monetization point. This barcode in the CRIS is being used as a debit account. This LEI or GLEI is used as a credit account. So whatever document is attached and affiliated with this state file number slash GLEI credit, every barcode in the CRIS debit, and whatever you do on one side of the ledger, there has to be an equal and opposite on the other, and there can't be any overages. So the tokenization comes from instantly converting the credits to debits on the ledger. So yes, the K1 serves as a tokenization point. It instantly tokenized the credit to a debit. It instantly tokenized the debit to a credit. So the value just simply moved from column 1 to column 2. Column 2 just happens to be on Bank of America's ledger when it was on the court's custodian account when it started. The same value is still there. It's just on opposite ends of the spectrum. When you deposited the documentary draft, you armed the credit. When you tokenized it and brought it back to the trust, it became a debit account. And the United States Treasury does the debiting. So they determine how it's being routed. This is why in the instruction they're saying utilize the TT&L department. This is why you're going to be conducting your CTR reports. When you as a notary send in your CTR with these predicating documents, you have met Regulation J, Regulation D, and Z, as far as the feds are concerned. And any information on the UCC-5 can be monetized as a letter of credit. And because you're foreign to the public system, you haven't caused any damages or injury. Did that kind of help you?
Sure did.
All right. Who doesn't understand?
That makes sense.
Who doesn't understand? When you're doing these loans, we arm through arbitration. This is what it looks like at the end of arbitration. The only thing ain't filled out is who is going to and for what purpose. That's why we conduct the hearing to see who's getting what, under what pretenses. Is everybody clear on that?
Yeah. I think where I kind of got, I understand most of what you're saying. I guess where I'm kind of lost is in this, the how the LEI or these barcodes come into existence, or how their the information is being like formatted for the system to know that, okay, this side is a debit, this side is a credit,
It's inside of the
to
isn't
balance,
it's
any.
inside of the variables and the parameters of the technology. I give you the technical and not so technical. I have a chat bot that monetizes everything that I put, and if I give commands, it'll attach these barcodes to the documents, and it's able to track that value from sandbox to sandbox. And I'm able to bring that into the court registry and take it out of the court registry and assign it to another LEI system.
But what I'm saying is we have to create the initial barcodes and LEI information, right?
You're going to have one to come from. Now, I can't tell you not to create your own. I'm going to say That shouldn't be a hard task to do with ChatGPT because they create these things for you if you tell it to. Having a one world system, that is not your allegory. That's their allegory.
Okay, so I think a question here is the process to create the barcode. Where
It's
is that?
it's just the font. Like let's keep it in the text of
And then,
yeah. Like if in other words, you will if you're in a new Bittrex space, you already have this proponent. You just need to critique it to your liking, and then build on it. But by no means do I expect to see yours looking exactly like mine. That's going to be a problem. There's a specific reason why I use certain things on my specimens. Like, in order for you to use everything that I use on my specimen, you would have to have gone to prison, served 7 years in prison, recouped and recaptured all the value that has been done, utilize those same UCCs, and cover all of those access points to use what I give you verbatim. And of course, you can't.
I think we want to do that.
Right. That's why I'm telling you. I'm giving you a guide so you'll know how yours could look. But there's no wrong way of doing it. The algorithm says give us the fundamentals. The fundamentals is there has to be a debit account and a credit account that is being tracked. And you have a tracking system. I just simply use barcodes and generally accepted accounting principles and the CRIS. Everything else they already have. And because I'm not marketing this publicly, it can be as fancy or as slow or as, it can be whatever I want it to be. It just has to have the fundamentals. Now, if you want a fundamental breakdown, I will be more than glad to pull the course that my mentor brought forth. I'll put it back inside the Bittrex space. I think that course maybe was like $5 or $10. Acquire it, listen, and watch until your heart content. Because he actually designed a species from scratch with all of the parameters, all the things that, because see, a lot of the stuff that's floating around, a lot of folks don't even know where it came from. They just started using it. They'll go to my seminar, they'll go to somebody else's. Next thing I know, I see their name on my shit. And then there's a reason, like, I'll just go ahead and give you a clue. I leave out a barcode number on purpose. There's a reason why I do that. Now, when it goes live, I give you that. I tell you which one to add. Because I've had folks that do all kind of stuff. But this should be used as a guide. Now I know Brother Antoine and Miss Flemings, they actually have already been in the banking box space for a while, and they actually have all the predicating documents in this file. And I think both those guys can testify. It's way more in the packet than what we're talking about. It's way, way more. This is just I'm trying.
So much more.
Yes, I'm just trying to give you something as a guide.
Yeah.
yeah, just one document.
Right.
Out that whole packet? Yeah, no.
Yeah,
So what I would say is, okay, let's say you're trying to figure out how to get your barcodes. Let's say you want to go to barcode system. You don't want to do a ledger. Like some individuals don't even issue specimens. They just issue documentary drafts because they have no problem with the accounting. They're good at utilizing the accounting. Now, here's what I will say if you are a notary in good standings in your state. The headquarters for Dunn and Bradstreet is in Jacksonville. And if you have the transmittal letter, your UCCs, all of your stuff in a order, a day trip, or Brother Antoine, you're in Florida. I'm in Florida. We got other notaries like Miss Ashbury. She's in Florida. There are notaries that could actually get your barcodes and so forth directly inundated into Dun and Bradstreet. Because when the notary walks these documents in, they're given special treatment. Especially when we're talking about hypothecation and monetization based on court orders and trust. How many notaries do you need in order for you to conduct a notary presentment or an arbitration proceeding? How many notaries does it take? 2 notaries. 2 or more. 2 are notaries. Two notaries or more, you're in a proceeding. And when that notary is asked to do attestation and jurorating, that is a proceeding. So when that notary has your packet, she or he is taking it down to Dun and Bradstreet, that is an attestation. That's a court proceeding. And a lot of magic can happen with those documents when they've been properly ledgered in a D&B profile. How many of you guys received proof of funds last week? Is anybody in this class received a proof of funds document? Okay. Without spilling the beans on all your goodies, Miss Flemings, did your proof of funds come with the medallion signature guarantee on it?
Yes, sir, it did.
Okay. Now, for laughs and giggles, what is used for a real estate purchase in the public can be remonetized for a whole different purpose. It's just at Miss Fleming's discretion on which way she wants to use it.
Right.
The moral of the story is there's enough tools to track your private conveyance. I am going to say you're going to need some sort of Linux operating system. You're going to need a program called Cockpit. And you're going to need tools like what we're talking about to design your negotiable instruments, both digitally and physically.
Question.
Yes.
Did you say that you can instruct the chat GPT to create the QR code and the barcode for you?
Sure can.
I thought that's what you said. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. In the interim of this loan officer training, if you're in both Gold Capital and North Avenue Capital space as a loan officer, you have an access of over 15 to 20 different loan products. And what that means in this training is that those products each product creates its own set of securities, if that makes sense. Here's what I propose. Some of you guys are a little more computer savvy than others. Some of you have already deep dove into certain things. We have Brother Lamont. You still with us?
I'm still with you.
All right. Brother Lamont happens to be one of these brothers that I'm talking about specifically, who's very computer savvy. It would be to your best interest with your banking in a box platform for those that are in this space to preferably get with Mr. Lamont about an interface for conveyance. Because it's not hard to do. It's just the more cases we arbitrate in here, the stronger the algorithm becomes. Unequivocally, cases should be heard. Like I heard a couple of cases today from a couple of other different clients in a different parameter. And this was the first time I actually arbitrated, but I was monitoring. In other words, we have successfully created an algorithm that automates arbitration now. So if the AI is asking for you to give specifics on a particular transaction for arbitration, it's able to automate the entire proceedings. And you can just opt to rather have this thing monetized through barcodes or QR codes, depending upon your system. It would be to your advantage if you're in that new Bitrix space to get with Mr. Lamont and myself after class. No one asked this question, but I will say it because it came up in a different class. What if you sit in on Monique's proceeding and do noting and minuting? You sit in on Antoine's proceeding and do noting and minuting. You sit in on Suzette's arbitration, note and minute. What happens after you sit the first round and render judgment? Does the securities just go dormant? And I would respond with no, Grasshopper. The ability to hear, note, and minute gives you an M3 asset that you can use in your very next transaction. In the public, value seems like it's always going away, and you got to go back and barter time to get it back. In the private, before you give it away, you documenting where you got it from and who you're giving it to. And then when you perform, you recoup your equity. Isn't one of your accounting principles is liabilities plus equity equals assets? So your entire level of participation, you're never doing anything for free or for naught. It has to be minimally a quid pro quo of equal exchange. It's just a matter of the cost. The notary who sits in different proceedings builds a portfolio of performing paper that has the ability to be insured and reinsured. What are the advantages of dispersing a K1 with someone who's facing bankruptcy? Like I got a client right now who's contemplating bankruptcy. Does anyone in this class have an arbitration proceeding where they got an M3 asset, they haven't quite figured out what they want to do with it?
Yes, me.
And if you do, we have a client that needs something to save them from bankruptcy. Would you be willing to solicit your unearned portion to assist this fiduciary with bankruptcy?
I would.
Okay. Now I'm saying it this way to kind of spark some thinking here. Once you have recorded that transaction into your journal, you get to draw off of it from that perspective. Now, I was asked this question early on in the training, can we draw off the instruments? And I unequivocally said no. I said there's exceptions to this. Only after you have noted and minuted the situation properly, then can you draw off your own instrument. Now listen to me carefully. This barcode is the equivalent of a routing number and an account number of a private conveyance. This barcode is the same as this QR code, which is the same as this number. It's just that inside the CRIS, this is what you look like. You look like this debit card in the CRIS. When you're processing a debit card or credit card, what are the questions that the algorithm usually asks you about the information off the card? Of course, it asks you for the account number, right? Then after it asks you for the account number, it'll ask you for some sort of CVC code or some kind of code like that, right? Then it'll ask you for an expiration date or a validation date. Then it's going to ask you something like a zip code. So let's use those things as the fundamental information that you need to move value in the CRIS. Account number, a 3-digit identifier or 4-digit identifier, an expiration date. In securities, you're going to call that a maturity date, and a valid zip code. If you had a point of sale machine and you had that information in front of you without having the card, couldn't you manually key that information in and tender payment? The DTC, great, because see, the DTC and DTCC system already has, that's how they're set to move value. This is why when you apply for the black card, all it is what I'm showing you. It's just you have sponsors. You were sponsored. And so you got to use that for different things. That means if I got a black card, I can't just go down to Walmart and just start running up stuff at Walmart. That gets my privileges revoked. I'm not supposed to use the black card at Walmart. Y'all did know that, right? You knew that if you ever got a black card, you know, the way it's actually put together, you're not supposed to be doing anything conventionally with it. It's to buy securities. Y'all know that, right? I'm not giving legal advice. Let me say this if you didn't know this. The average person who applies for the black card that don't read the fine print, you will end up in federal prison if you use that black card for conventional purposes. Because it's designed to buy securities. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the DTC black card is designed to buy securities, then what does that mean for this debit account? Well, I done lost them now. They like, dang, what does that mean?
It's called a declare.
Mm.
What's the question again? Because I didn't
Okay,
hear
okay,
you.
okay. So if the DTC and DTCC's black card is designed for secure, you're supposed to use that card to buy securities. That's what it was created for. I'm not saying that's what everybody uses it for. I'm saying one of the things that send you to prison is when you buy it using it at Walmart. So if the DTC and DTCC's black card system is to be used to buy securities, then what do you think you're supposed to be doing with your card?
On securities.
I like Antoine's answer better because it speaks volumes clear to securities.
So if it's used to buy, okay, so buying the securities is when you're issuing. So if you say, to me, when you say clearing, that means you can buy or you can clear your own securities.
Right. Remember, you're not competing with the debt derivative system. You just have your own system.
So that's like clearing.
That way, whatever you leave unattended, you know, trust me, in this level of operating with the Chris, you use a documentary bill of exchange to put it inside the court registered investment system, and you use a physical bill of exchange to withdraw it out. And if you're the fiduciary in the middle, all you're doing is just like how a poor man would do copyright. He would actually copyright the work, put it in an envelope, stamp it, and mail it to himself and never open it. Literally what you're going to do is you're going to go into the Chris through a documentary draft, and then as a fiduciary, you're going to be able to show that it was tendered, went around the world, stamped by all these institutions, just like they use their system in your ledger. Now, when you can show that, you can assign that value to somebody else. That's the safest transaction in the world. And the game is to be sold, not told.
I like that.
If they want to know how to do those things, you give them a latency and competency test. Show me the last 90-day CTRs, and I will have UPS deliver this tomorrow morning. If they can't find a competent fiduciary, you allow the recipient to retain you, and you simply retrieve the specimen. Because once you retrieve it, you can cancel the UCC. That's your line of credit right there. Who's not understanding that?
Say that last part again.
Okay. If you Okay, I'm gonna start with the loan, and I'm gonna end with this transaction. You want to buy a parcel of real estate. Go Capital says if you're able to get, your credit's not strong enough, you don't have enough income. So you find out how much credit you need and how much income by having enough collateral to cover the transaction. So if you're buying $1 million piece of real estate, you at least minimally need to bring $500,000 in collateral, which will get you across the finish line. So once you author your loan origination document, having the borrower agree to pay those points, then you bring that loan to arbitration. And when we arbitrate that case, out pops this proof of funds, certified proof of funds, documentary bill of exchange, and a physical bill of exchange. Then that loan officer gets with a fiduciary such as a notary. That notary helps author from the arbitrating proceeding a transmittal letter, files the UCC 1s, 3s, and 5s, and then creates a letter of credit from all of what we just talked about. And then inside of that agreement, there is verbiage that allows Go Capital's underwriting to hold as collateral that $500,000 money transmittal bond, which they are agreeing to pay the 1% cost, for filing it. So what it looks like is the person who got the loan got it at a much cheaper rate. The loan officer made an additional 5 points on the loan, and the recipient now has a whole nother asset that he can use for another product if he gets back with the notary who did the noting in minutes. Do you understand what I just said?
So he can use the same documents or assets for a different product.
There you go. So instead of now you got the real estate. Now you can go get the equipment leasing. Now you can go get. This is how you build synergy with what you have. That's why I encourage you to become a loan officer, because it's not about. I'm pushing you to start turning in loans, because every time you do an application, that's a new trust, and it can be monetized. And through arbitration,
So
we
wouldn't that be considered like a
say it again.
no? I wanted you to finish what you were saying.
Whenever we do arbitration, we're able to literally do all the heavy lifting, because I'm able to explain it and delegate and designate who gets what under what parameters. And then I'm able to bring the loan officer and notary back into the fold as the fiduciaries that you need to operate this trust, because you can only do it with the notary. Any questions?
So it's like a poor man revolving line of credit.
Right. It's just there's sophisticated algorithms that are asphyxiated with what's being done. And of course, different scenarios require different set of rules and verbiages. But you no longer have the excuse of I don't know what to do, I'm waiting on this, I'm waiting on that. I'll give you the high road. I rotate systems every 90 days because as I learn more, I develop more. I talked about ADP a lot last year. I've barely mentioned ADP this year, and we're 6 months into the year, and there's a reason for that. It's not that it's not important. It's just it's a different aspect of the same equation. If I'm telling you the safest transaction as a notary is to put it in the DTC with a documentary draft, and if the recipient for some reason just is too cool for school, then be retained to draw it out of the CRIS, why do you think that's the safest transaction?
And you don't lose your assets.
Say that again.
And you won't lose the asset.
Not only will you won't lose the assets, you won't lose none of your equity because you're in possession. Possession is what? 9/10 of the law. The other 10th is documentation. Conventional thinking is on the moon. And it's okay for everybody to not know, don't understand. They're not supposed to. This is a private conveyance. The public is not supposed to know your process. They're going to have to take a manual and a course to understand what's being done. That's what makes this a complex trust. It don't need to be that simple that anybody can do it. But it does need to be that simple that anybody can do it.
Just a comment, Dr. Faye.
Say it again.
Just a comment.
Yes.
The the reason why Navy Federal would not open the trust was
Right.
because it was not simple trust.
It was not a simple trust. Correct.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was like, thank you for letting me know. Appreciate you.
Remember, they thrive on simple trust, and this is now that you brought this up, this is what I want all you guys to look at. A lawyer charges $55,000 for what you have done, and they don't even give you the 41-page trust. It's a simple trust, one that will send you straight to probate. They charge 50 grand for that. The technology makes it where you can start selling your prompts. I'm going to stop the conversation, stop recording at this point. How much do you think someone would pay for banking prompts to move a conveyance from the Chris to a domestic bank? How much would that prompt? How much you think you can get for that prompt?
I mean, 10 grand, you're sweet.
Okay. What if you can sell the prompt and the specimens to match?
I mean, depending on stuff.
$30,000.
Okay. What if you can sell the prompts, the specimens to match, and the instruction manuals and the hardware and software?
We're in millions.
You need to talk to Brother Lamont after class and myself.
I mean, but there's people that'll pay that even without you doing it.
Listen to what I'm saying. You just answered the question. There are loan officers that generate leads with credit that has 700 scores that can't pass underwriting because they don't know the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet. There's a prompt for that. There's individuals that standing around with deals that are not being funded, not because they're unfundable, because they don't understand forensic accounting and CECL. There's a prompt for that.
But there's no incentive for them to. I mean, they get paid regardless. They still get the base salary, and then, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They just live without commission. So,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Their own thing is, of course, they're going to take you to the dog pony show.
Right.
They're going to show their superior, hey, I got these people that came in, but they just weren't fundable.
Right.
So they still been owners at the end of the year.
Right. So the missing recipe is accredited investors. So let's talk about the end goal and then we'll end the class. An accredited investor is someone who made $250,000 a year, 3 years consecutive, that control $1 million asset outside of real estate. Based upon what we just went over, is that an environment that's difficult to create with these tools?
No,
What would you charge to take someone from zero to a hero as an accredited investor?
I'm not going to say they add off, but I'm certainly getting that they fit.
Okay. Do you think would you price this education as the equivalent of acquiring an online course to become an accountant? Like how much you have to pay to become an accountant with the education? When I went, it was like 65 grand.
it was probably 100.
Right. So to take someone who isn't a accredited investor to become an accredited investor in a 3 week, 1 week, 2 month, whatever length of course and curriculum you set up, they're guaranteed to become that. What would be the cost? Remember, Berkshire Hathaway charges $400,000 for A shares.
You could do that into a little easy. What do you think about it?
So as loan officers with Gold Capital and NAC, and there's other lenders, I'm just using these two for class purposes. You could your market isn't doing a lot of loans per verbatim, it's doing quality and quantity. Having a quality client that you can do 7 to 8 different products with, and one product funds the next product. The minimum invoice for Gold Capital to do equipment leasing, which is 24-hour funding, is $25,000. Which means if your company sends an invoice to the client for $25,000, that includes hardware, software, education, the whole 9 yards, and it's minimally an invoice of $25,000, they'll finance that in 3 days. Now, if you just so happen to have a loan agreement in play and a loan originating agreement in play, the person can come in. You can write the loan and make commissions on the front and back. But I'll digress because you're getting into the part that gets me all excited, and I am ready to fund. Those of you that have more specific questions about how to monetize the proof of funds, letter of credit, I'll reserve this portion of the class to do that. If I don't have any other questions, then I'm going to jump back into the catbird seat to get the rest of these loans processed for tomorrow. Does anybody got any questions for me?
I'm curious about it. How do you build? Where do you build out the profile?
What do you build out the profile?
Yeah.
Okay,
The number.
when you say, well, how do you build out the profile? Explain what you mean, so I'm following you.
All right. So they issue a guide, like building out like what the number covers, or you know, what I'm saying, not just the assignment as to the name of the company. There's no interface or no that I'm understanding where to do this at.
Okay. Where do you build out the? Okay, so just so we're clear. There is an interface that is being used by all those that are monetizing said profile. You're asking, is there where do we take? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to see exactly what you're meaning by where would you take the profile.
So what you said is G. If I'm understanding, you're talking about G in the if I'm understanding.
GLEI, right?
But what else? If you G in the
Yes. Okay, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, let's say you get an LEI attached to your company, but you wanna have information behind the LEI that says that this number covers or represents this other information.
Right.
So how does that happen?
You ever received a judgment certificate from Florida before?
No.
Okay. So what you would do is you would find a state like Florida that does judgment certificates and record that information on the certificate. Now it's available for the world to see or not to see.
Well, we could do that on the UCC too, right?
The UCC is one side of the system. You're talking about global LEIs, so that's a different system. So think about the CRIS as one part dealing DTC, other part dealing with DTCC. So which part deals with GLEIs, DTC or DTCC?
DTC.
Okay, so there's a security settlement system and instructions specifically for what that looks like. Unequivocally, the Secretary of State is where it's going to be. It's just it's either going to show up on a UCC or an audited financial and judgment certificate. It just depends on who's looking for it. Who's going to utilize that information for what purpose?
So, so in other words, I can use that judgment certificate more than just.
Right. See, they always give certificates to the public, and the person who gets the certificate takes it, frames it, holds ceremonies, and say how good they was when they was in school. I got this piece of paper, but they don't understand the monetization aspects of it. And the monetization aspect of it is the place that registered that certificate. See, you got the certificate, you're not doing anything with it but looking at it. The individual who registered it, they're monetizing that information, value, and individual. So if you got the certificate and not the other side, as a parliamentary draftsman, you have the ability to create that scenario. I stay in the realm of CRIS and DTCC and Euroclear because that's the easiest things you can walk right out of this conversation into tonight. But there's other systems. There's other algorithms.
Right, but we're just keeping it simple.
Right. I want you to keep it simple and safe. The most secure documents are the ones that you keep in your vault and are safe physically. The least secure documents is the ones you keep up in a cloud. So where should the value be?
Right.
Right. Before we jump off notaries, client trying to get a loan done, you've got the loan originating agreement in place, you're ready to see where they land at in the system, they're going to need a trust account. How do you assist this client with a trust account that has to be in place within 24 hours and they was denied a trust account in the public? Where do you go, notaries?
Have to do an arbitration, right?
You're going to do arbitration. How would you authenticate that trust account? They want to get them, and again, having that trust account gives you the ability to do policy loans and all this other stuff that you hear me talk about. I'm trying to get you to a smooth takeoff with this. 24 hours, if they can't get one publicly, where can you step in as a notary and issue one? This is the rule. You can't give legal advice. So you let them go out in the public and try to accomplish setting up a trust account. They come back to you, head hung low, they wouldn't give me one.
They would have to be inside of one of our ledgers.
Right, but there's a notary's best friend because the notary has a whole republic office at his disposal.
Right, but I'm saying the notary can create a trust account.
Right.
It can be a non-bank.
Right.
For that individual.
Right.
And then once that handles the 24-hour situation, but then what you have to do is establish another account. I'm just saying from what I understand. I'm not saying that's the only way.
Yeah. Let me give you the in case of emergency break glass so no notary and you guys aren't left stranded. If a notary can drive to the post office, the notary has access to trust accounts. If the notary can drive to the post office, the notary has access to transmittal bonds.
All you need is a registered mail.
Registered mail is for bonds, and certified mail receipts are trust accounts.
certified.
Mm-hmm.
So the applications is a placeholder. You want to run an application on every scenario because every application registered and certified as a trust. And once you have the application, creating a trust with this digital space is super simple. But don't give it away, sell it. Because I am.
As you should be.
We have to. Okay, if no more questions, I'm gonna be in the office. Leave a message. Try to give me a call. I'm gonna have it open for another hour before we jump out. I gotta get with the other crew to get some loans pushed in. If you got any other questions, reach out to me. I'm here. I got one more spot left for arbitration tomorrow from 5:30. I don't think my notice is gonna be available till after 5:30 tomorrow. Uh, who has another case that they know they need to get arbitrate? They hadn't had a chance to get it into the mix yet. All right. So with that being said, I'll just wait for you
I
guys.
know I do. I just don't know yet
I
which
got you.
direction.
Okay. We'll check the ledger.
Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I have one question. I think it's Miss Clemens. I was just seeing what bank did she try to go to?
Navy Federal.
Oh, okay, that's the same bank I'm dealing with. And um, you
They,
said
they, they'll tell you, oh, we're sorry,
Trying
we
to
can't
open.
open that type of trust. And I finally said, you need to tell me why. Well, we only deal with simple trusts.
Right. That's and
And
that.
I
And,
believe that's the same
I'm
reason
sorry.
A Bank turned it
What
down.
side, well, what side are you on? Are you on the retail side or the broker side?
okay, okay, thank
On
you.
the broker side.
On the broker side, okay. So Navy
So it was a
Federal, they
wealth
don't do
manager.
any right,
Yep.
and
It was wealth manager as well.
they
Yeah.
certain laws that they do. Yeah, I just opened one. That's what I was just telling them. So they have two different ways to go about it. So what they're saying is it's not so much just a simple trust. The only one is just a revocable trust to open it. But then once you establish the account, then they'll let you go into the other ones.
Mhm.
when there's a will, there's a way.
There's a way.
Okay, thank you, brothers and sisters.
All right. Hey, that's what's up. Hey, I'm ready to run. I'm ready to fun, man. Y'all get at me if you already got both. Who hasn't got the NAC done yet? North Avenue Credit.
I haven't gotten it done yet.
Okay. I need you guys to have that in play as soon as possible.